Welcome to ATL Day Ones with Jarvis and Tenitra. Coming up on today's show, Kaleb and Chris have to do better. Are you buying all this Jordan Love hype? And last but not least, and for the culture, leave nephew Ronnie alone. It's ATL Day Ones. Let's go.
This is ATL Day Ones, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta. And it starts now.
I want to start by saying thank you for making ATL Day Ones your first listen of the day. Remember, we are free and available wherever you download your podcast. And wherever you download your podcast, make sure that you leave us a 5-star review. We really appreciate that from you in advance. Today's episode of ATL Day Ones is brought to you by Jace Medical. Empower yourself when you purchase a Jace case, providing you with a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treat 50-plus infections. Get yours today at jacemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com. ATL Day Ones is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Folks, for those of you who don't know, if you're not watching on YouTube, you listen on the audio feed, first of all, thank you. This is not a Tenitra Batiste episode today. She is not with us today. She will be back tomorrow. For all you people who just started crying, dry your tears. She'll be back, I promise you. Aaron Freeman joins me today at Falk Fans, RIP. Aaron Freeman, you can follow him on Twitter. And of course, he is the Locked On Falcons host, the most humble host that you will ever meet in your life. And I hope that you're seeing me and kind of think that, you see the little smirk on my face as I say that. Because
humble, Jarvis.
So he is. The man is just the most humble man I've ever met in my life. I promise you. Like, I don't know anybody more humble. I don't know who's more humble, him or me. But that's another debate for another day. Aaron, got a chance to check out this 24-10 win of the Atlanta Falcons, and I think that after going through the film, I think that I'm a little bit more calm because I started to think about, like, all right, first week, obviously if people want to overreact and try to say, okay, well, Chris Lindstrom he didn't deserve the money. He was the absolute worst. Or Desmond Ridder needs to be thrown out to the fields and take the trash out, basically, and bring in Taylor Heineke. But after you got a chance to watch the game and go back through it and kind of let some things settle in, like, who do you feel like needs to make the biggest improvement in order to try to get this win against the Green Bay Packers on Sunday?
Well, I would go with the offensive line, right?
Right.
We make a lot about how good Derek Brown and Brian Burns were, and they are good. They're very good players, some of the better players at their respective positions in the NFL. But Green Bay has guys just as good, if not better, than those guys, right? I think you can make a case that Rashawn Gary is better than Brian Burns. I think you can make a case that Kenny Clark is better than Derek Brown, and not to mention it's not just those two guys, because outside of Derek Brown and Brian Burns, ain't nobody really doing much for the Panthers up front. Justin Houston, I don't know what he was doing out there. I didn't really notice him.
He's on E. He's on E, Aaron.
He's
on E.
I did not even realize he was in the game.
He's trying to figure it out.
Yeah. So, but Green Bay's got a bunch of rookies that showed out against the Bears. Kobe Wooden, Lucas Van Ness, Carl Brooks. Some of those guys we saw down at the Senior Bowl. They have Preston Smith. They have
Devontae Wyatt,
yeah,
Decatur's finest.
Yeah,
he got home.
They got a bunch of dudes out there that can beat you, and it's not just two guys that you have to game play. Because the Falcons basically, after a certain point, was able to kind of neutralize Burns and Brown because they were just like, okay, we'll just have
turn them down a
guys.
notch.
We'll double team those two guys, and everybody else will be fine.
Right.
You try double teaming, Gary. You tried double teaming. Clark or Wyatt, like, there's other guys that are going to beat you. So I think this Falcons offensive line definitely has to step up this week.
Yeah, I'm with you on that because I think that, when you think about like the first week reaction, right? Like, I think the offensive line probably caught the most brunt of all of the angst and disdain from Falcons fans, right? Specifically on Twitter. And I would specifically probably say Kaleb McGary probably caught the most of it, right? He caught a lot of bodies on social over the week. So, but I think that when you think about that offensive line, as far as some of the highlights of it, right? And here's where I'm at with it. I really feel like Matthew Bergeron had a solid game, super solid game. And be honest with you, PFF had him graded out the highest of any offensive lineman on out of the starting 5. And he also graded out higher than your very well paid right guard. And to be honest with you, after looking at it, and Chris Lindstrom, don't get me wrong, had a really bad game. He had a really bad game, to put it lightly. But when you think about it, you have to put it in perspective and kind of take a step back and look at it and just like, that's probably the last time that Bergeron is going to grade higher than Chris Lindstrom, because given the track record of what we've seen now, and Bergeron had his struggles as well, because we talked about it before we started the show. Derek Brown touched everybody, like literally everybody. Like that batted down pass, he was going to get Drew Dahlman, and he was about to put Dahlman right there in the lap of Mr. Ridder. So yeah, those are some of the things that we pointed out. But I think I'm with you. I think the offensive line has to really, really step up in this game, because I think that they need to start settling in where they're going to be, like as the season goes along, because I don't think week 1 in that first half, I don't think that's where they are. I think they're much better than that, and they showed that in the second half once they started to make some adjustments. But I think coming down the line, I think the offensive line is kind of, where they need to be as far as the biggest unit that needs to make the most improvement. Now, before we move on, what specific player do you see that for a fact that I guess I'm already answered this question? Like, when I think it's going to be Chris Lindstrom, I think he's going to make the biggest jump as to how his play last week versus this week. But what is the player that you have in mind that you saying that, okay, this guy is going to make a big jump this week against Green Bay as well?
I know he graded out pretty well. Jake Matthews is probably the guy I'm picking, but I saw a couple of times where I was like, this don't look like the normal Jake, right? So I think those are the two guys. You talk about Lindstrom, you talk about Jake Matthews. Like, those are the two guys that you go into every game expecting to be lights out. You don't worry about them. And when you have that as your kind of anchor points on the offensive line, then you can kind of do all the schematic things that Arthur Smith has been doing to try to, mask the idea of the other 3 guys where we've consistently had bigger question marks. But hopefully, we won't have that question mark moving forward at the left guard position, as you mentioned, with Matthew Bergeron moving forward. But, I think Jake is one of those guys that needs to play better, because when, you're getting brought down to Kaleb McGary's level, like, that's not a good look for Jake, right?
No, not at all.
I know we're slandering Kaleb McGary a lot, but like, it's like, we know what Kaleb McGary is. Like
we know what he is. Yeah, the money didn't change that. Yeah.
He's a great run blocker, and he's an okay pass protector. Yeah. And I thought Jake, he was fine in pass protection. He did get that work from Brian Burns, a couple of reps, but that the run blocking to me also was a problem for Jake in this game. And you go back to 2021, Jake's run blocking wasn't very good that year, and then last year his run blocking I thought was really good, some of the best run blocking he's had throughout his NFL career. And so I think that's not to say that's the reason why the Falcons' rushing success was so good, but last year, but it is one of those things where, like, if you can get Jake playing at his best level, where you're getting, an 8 out of 10 pass protector and also maybe like a 7 out of 10 run blocker, that's going to be a real big boost for the Falcons' offensive line. So Jake is the guy, in addition to some of the other players, that I think needs to step up.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And I love how we talk about the bigs, man. Like, that just gets me excited. Like, let's get these big boys right, and then all the rest of the stuff will fall into place. I'm with you on that. But coming up next, though, Desmond Ridder, Jordan Love are the highest rated passers in the NFL? Wait a minute. We'll talk about that battle coming up next. But first, got to let you know that this episode of ATL Day Ones is brought to you by Jace Medical. Jarvis Davis here for Jace Case. Everyone should be empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. That's why Jace Medical offers the Jace Case. Yes, the Jace Case. The Jace Case provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use and gives you a peace of mind when you are in an emergency. And you don't have to just hope to have your medication. You can have access to it right there. So what am I talking about? Okay, Jace Medical is simple, guys. It's very simple. All you got to do is go online, fill out a form, and then you get prescription, life-saving medications right to your door. The Jace Case gives you peace of mind so that you are not just hoping that you have access to medication in an emergency. Jace Medical makes sure you have the medication in hand. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to go to jacemedical.com so you can save more than $360 by getting these life-saving antibiotics with Jace Medical. Plus, guess what? On top of that, you're going to get an additional $20 off. All you got to do is use my code Locked On. Yes, the code Locked On at checkout. So here's what I want you to do. Go to jacemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com. Use the promo code Locked On and make sure you're not scrambling when there is an emergency. ATL Day Ones is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Got Aaron Freeman with me today, filling in for my girl, Tanitra Batiste. She will be back tomorrow, so dry your tears, dry your eyes. I promise you, she will be back. And to my everydayers, you guys knew that she wasn't going to be here, so guess what? That means you need to come back tomorrow and drop that doggone I'm an everydayer in the comment box. We really appreciate you guys. We are pushing towards 9,000 subscribers. Yes, we're almost at 9,000 subscribers. So if you haven't subscribed to Locked On Sports Atlanta, please do so. And if on the audio feed you haven't hit that subscribe button, like, what are you waiting on? Follow us so you can get that notification that every time a new episode drops. Now, Aaron, Jordan Love had a pretty doggone good game. But my question to you is, when you think about like who they went up against, right? I kind of had to put this thing in perspective. The Chicago Bears are an awfully run team, like just from a coaching standpoint. Like Ryan Poles, he may have a little savvy about him with the moves that he made on draft day and everything. And I know some Chicago Bears fans are still maybe starting to shed some tears after they seen Jalen Carter, play his first game. He out there doing his thing, getting it in, doing like he was supposed to do on the field. But I think that when you put it in perspective as to what Jordan Love was faced up against, right? Like, that defense isn't good. That offensive line for the Chicago Bears isn't good. And there wasn't any expectations of them being good. Now, they brought some guys in to try to fill some holes up front. But overall, no one was expecting the Chicago Bears offensive line to be that great. So with that being said, are you in a space where the Falcons defense should be concerned that Jordan Love is coming to town?
Yeah, I think so. I'll say this. If we're talking about, am I buying the hype on Jordan Love? Yeah, I'll buy the hype on Jordan Love being Jimmy Garoppolo, right? Where you put him in an offensive system and it's kind of like point and click, go out there, make the throws that you need to make. He did that against the Chicago Bears. They schemed up a lot of throws, especially on third downs, where he was just kind of picking apart the Bears' zone defense. And I think we saw the Falcons in week 1 kind of sit back and hey, Bryce Young, if you can pick us apart, go ahead. And he couldn't do it, right? And if they play that style against the Packers, I don't think you're going to succeed doing that, because I think they've shown with Jordan Love's mastery of that offense, now being in there for 4 years, like he can go out there. He can do the things that we're sitting here thinking we want Desmond Ridder to do, to just go out there and execute the offense as Arthur Smith calls it up, right? So like I am thinking Jordan Love can be that type of player for the Packers, and I think showed that in week 1. And I think that's going to be a challenge for the Falcons. I think they need to go out there and be much more aggressive on defense, because, as I said, like if they're just sitting back and just saying, hey, come out and beat us, like, I hope this is one of these games that really shows the difference between Dean Pease and Ryan Nielsen, where not Ryan Nielsen's going to be much more aggressive. Dean Pease was just content, like, hey, look,
we ain't got the talent. Yeah, this is what we're gonna do.
Eventually, you're gonna make a mistake, so we're just gonna let you dig and dug, and then when we get in the red zone, hopefully we'll get a stop. You get 3 points, and then we'll figure it out from there. I don't think you can play that style moving forward, and you have the talent that you can be more aggressive now with Ryan Nielsen. So that's what I'm hoping to see. But I think Jordan Love is good. I'm not going to sit here and crown him as Aaron Rodgers or anything like that.
Right.
But
Yeah.
But if you're looking for a Jimmy Garoppolo type of quarterback that is a competent quarterback that can operate the offense at a high level, I think Jordan Love has shown that he can do that based off of week 1. And hopefully the Falcons, as they have done many times against a Jimmy Garoppolo in the last couple of years, even with Dean Pease playing the style of defense that he wanted to play, we have been able to disrupt that 49ers offense with Jimmy G under center. So I'm hopeful and optimistic that we'll do the same with Jordan Love.
Yeah, I agree, because here's the thing. Like, when it comes to like schemes and different, and what Ryan Nielsen wants to do, we know that he wants to be aggressive. We know that he wants to send guys from different levels, and we saw a little bit of that last week, specifically in the second half when they started to make those necessary adjustments, and they started moving that defensive line around up front from stunts and all that stuff. They started moving guys around. It was a beautiful sight to see. So I think that it's just a matter of this defense getting off to a good start, and like you said, you talking about point and click type offense. Like, when you have a guy like that, when you have those system quarterbacks, because you seem like we've been using that word a lot more lately, because, I mean, to be honest with you, it's hard to find guys that are just really good. You can just drop them in any system and they're going to be 10, 15-year starters. Like, and those guys are hard to find. So when you have a guy like a Jordan Love, who nobody really believed in when the Packers drafted him, and Aaron Rodgers said, you know what? Oh, y'all gonna draft a quarterback to replace me? How about I'm gonna have a MVP season behind that? Yeah, how about that? 2 of them. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, 2 of them. You know what I mean? So when you think about the levels, it's levels to this quarterback thing. That's why I tell people to kind of chill on Desmond Ridder, because we don't know what he is. Like, we understand that the Falcons at least think that he can point and click, for right now. And then once you start to get into that development phase, as far as like learning the offense more, get more comfortable in the scheme, learning actually what you do like within that scheme, and then the coach making those necessary adjustments and calling those plays for you, because you know what to look for in the first read if it's not there, or in the second read if that first read is not there, or where's my check down, or do I always want to go to my check down, or am I looking for a Drake London or a Kyle Pitts, when I'm trying to push the ball down the field. So I think that the Falcons defense really, is going to have to get off to a good start, from the beginning. I think they're going to establish themselves in the beginning, just like they did with the Carolina Panthers when they stopped them on 4th and 1. I was like, okay, this is something that, I like. This is what I like to see. Like, when you have your defense establish themselves, and I think they're going to have to get Jordan Love in a space where he's not comfortable, because he was very comfortable last week to the tune of 38 points against Chicago Bears. So I think when you get to a space where Nielsen is putting that pressure on him, I think the Falcons defense should be in a good space. Now, as far as on the other side of that, right, we talking about Desmond Ridder. We talked about what Ridder is, last week, right? The offensive line has to get better. We talked about that in the first segment. And with him having to get better, like, what does that look like for him? What do you think that looks like for him, as far as, okay, here we are in a space where this offensive line was a little bit shaky. There's some guys that we can kind of scheme around, and Kaleb McGary, we kind of used that. Man, it seems like we just going in on Kaleb McGary today, but sorry, Kaleb. But we're trying to make a point here. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So is there, we listed out all the names earlier on about what they're going to be faced up against with Devontae Wyatt, Preston Smith, Rashawn Gary, all of those guys. Joe Barry is going to be able to throw a lot of, bodies at this offensive line. How do you think that Arthur Smith attacks that in week 2?
Well, main thing Arthur Smith gonna do, he's gonna run the football, right?
He's gonna run that ball.
I'm gonna punch you in the mouth with the run game,
absolutely.
Right? Yeah. And if they can do that and get into some 3rd and shorts, because that was a big problem last week where they got in a lot of 3rd and longs, and that is not what this offense wants to be. Nope. So they need to get in some 3rd and manageables, and if they can do that, I feel confident that they can be able to be much more effective on third downs, move the chains, and I think Desmond Ridder can operate the ways that he needs to operate. So, even though I don't think Ridder played particularly well, even though as you mentioned, the passer rating is like second in the league, and it's like, didn't look like that.
Right.
It didn't look like that.
It didn't look like that in the Mercedes-Benz. Like that looked totally different. I'm like, wait a minute, where you get that number from?
Numbers are lying a little bit there.
Right.
With that, when you're just basically throwing it behind the line of scrimmage. Yeah, of course you're going to complete like 80% of your passes or whatever the number was. But
that's how I roll.
I think Desmond Ridder can do it. We just need to see it this week. But as you said, it starts up front. You got to control the line of scrimmage much better than they did last week. And if you can do that, then you will see the Arthur Smith offense come back to what we are accustomed to. A lot of runs, getting on third downs. And we've seen this consistently with Desmond Ridder, right? He's been able to be successful on third downs pretty consistently in what little action he's gotten going back to last year. So I think if they can do that, then they should be fine.
Yeah. I think that, on top of that too, I really feel like that having Tyler Algier and Bijan Robinson in the game at the same time, that's going to work out to their advantage, like going forward, especially if Tyler Algier continues to play like he did last week, because and I don't know about you, I wasn't surprised by that. I mean, there were some people who were like, whoa, wait a minute, who is this guy? Like, yeah, that's the guy that ran for 1,000 yards last year.
He was doing that every week for like the last 2 games last year. So.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Like, this dude has been on a nice little run, a little streak as of late. So I think that if they're able to get those guys on the field at the same time, and can we just get Drake London involved, get him involved early, because he seemed like he was a little out of it, Aaron, I don't know about you, but it just seems like, all right, man, I'm not saying you got to feed the man, 12, 13 targets or whatever. I'm not saying that, but get the man involved so he can kind of get this off, because I want to see all this offense working, clicking on all cylinders. I would love for them to get that done this week, being able to get the ball to Kyle Pitts, get the ball to Drake London, and then work that two-backs system and getting those guys touches as well, whether it be handing it off to them or throwing it to them out of the backfield. I think Arthur Smith has a lot of toys that he wants to play with. I think, like you said, but it starts up front as to whether or not he's going to be able to feed all those guys at one time. Yeah. My everydayers, I want to say thank you for rocking with ATL Day Ones. Really appreciate you guys. If you haven't, subscribed or like our YouTube channel, what are you waiting on? I need you guys to go ahead and do that. Just for me. If you don't want to do it for anybody else, do it for me, please. Or do it for Tanisha. I know y'all rocking with Tanisha, Yeah, go ahead and like and subscribe.
That's going to get you a lot more.
That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm trying to do, man. We're trying to get to 9,000, man, and then eventually 10. We're trying to get to 10 before the Falcons are 7-3. You know what I'm saying? Did I throw that out there? Okay, I'm just tripping today. I'm feeling real good about myself. But so, yeah, all my everydayers, we really appreciate you, and we thank you for rocking with ATL Day Ones. But Aaron, this is For the Culture. It is the intersection between sports, entertainment, the culture, and sometimes whatever the hell we want to talk about, because that's just how we get down on this show. Today is no different. Aaron, I don't know if you heard, but the Braves clinched their 6th straight NL East title last night. And, and of course, Philadelphia, how the city of brotherly hate. I can't call it brotherly love because they seem like they always hating. They boo Santa Claus, you know what I'm saying? So they just got a lot going on up in Philadelphia. They just angry for a lot of reasons, right? So during the celebration for the NL Division title, the 6th straight, the fans were booing. And my boy, nephew Ronald Acuna, that's who I affectionately refer to him as, nephew, was like, hey, man, y'all bring it on. Keep them boos coming. Mm-hmm. And, the Phillies manager, the day prior was just talking a little trash about my dog, saying that, hey, need to act like you've been there before. So, man, I know this narrative, if I want to use the Arthur Smithism, this narrative irks me. So, I'm gonna let you go ahead and start off first, man. What are your thoughts on this whole situation about celebrating, act like you've been there before, and all this stuff, man.
Well, I mean, I know that Phillies probably haven't been there before because it's been a minute, and so
It's been a while.
Acuna, he's the runaway favorite for the MVP. I know Bryce Harper won the MVP a couple of years ago, but
He looks at 6 home runs too. He stares at them too, and flips his bat as well.
So I don't know, man. I'm trying to be the civil one here, Jarvis. Here, it's just so stupid. It's
because you probably know where I'm about to go.
Yeah, it's just I hate this stuff too. I just look, man. It's sports. Like,
right?
It's a as they like to say, it's a child's game, right? Like like celebrate, This man's on top of the world. Acuna, he's going to win the MVP. He's a runaway favorite for the MVP, right? The Braves are runaway favorites to win the World Series. Like, yeah, I get why you're mad in Philadelphia because come on, you mad, bro?
Why? Why are you mad though? Like because here's the thing, man. Like this is it runs a little deep with me because like people have had these type of comments and had these type of statements and utterings and underlying type of things being said about Ronald Acuna ever since he stepped on the diamond down here in Atlanta. So I heard an interesting comment today when people were talking about like, oh yeah, Ronald Acuna had maturity issues when he first came in. He did? Or was it Freddie Freeman didn't like his style and who he was as a person, how he was as a person when he started talking about the eye black and wearing his hat a different way and hey, this is how you're supposed to act and like no. Ronald Acuna said, no, I'm gonna be me, and he's been himself since day one, and he hasn't changed. So what are we talking about? How he's matured? And no, don't add that narrative because that's the same type of narrative that goes right along with act like you've been there before. But like you said, this is sports, man. It's fun. Like so, I need y'all to leave Ronald Acuna alone, man. Like please leave the man alone because like when you start making those type of statements, like I really start to question you at who you are as a person. I question your character, to be honest with you, when you start saying that because I don't hear you saying that about anybody else. Mm-hmm. I don't hear you saying about Bryce Harper. Are you saying Rob Thompson, manager of the Phillies? Are you saying that about your own player? Because I saw plenty of highlights of him gawking at his home runs and flipping that bat as he goes around the doggone bases. So, hey, man, if Ronald Acuna takes his time to celebrate that home run by flapping his wings as he's going around first base, so be it. That's just how he celebrates. Bryce Harper celebrates in his own way, and Ronald Acuna celebrates in his own way, man. Yeah, so, now the doors of the church open. You know what I mean? Like, I'm about to pass out an offering plate, Aaron. See, I said I was the most humble host. I was just as humble as you. That's not humble. What I just said, that's not humble, Aaron. Like, please bring me back down. I don't know where I am right now. Like, I'm flailing right now. Help me out, Aaron, please.
Well, I mean, look, I don't know what to say, man. It's just like, this is the thing. This is the one thing I hate about baseball, right? This is why I
know the whole tradition crap, right?
The whole traditional stuff.
I'm with you,
man.
I'm with you, man.
You running the bases, like everybody's looking at you. Do if you want to do backflips around the base, do backflips around the bases, right? You know what I mean? It's the same thing with football. With touchdown celebrations. Like we all sit there and we all enjoy.
We expect them to do something, right? You know what I'm saying?
When the defense gets a turnover and everybody runs to the end zone and is doing the rowboat thing, doing the bowling pin thing. Like
that's cool.
That's the best part of the game. Like like baseball needs more of that, So like when people are like, "Hey, I want you in there," shut up.
Shut up. Like, please. That's my first response to shut up. Like, please shut up and leave nephew alone. That's the thought for the day. So yeah, but yeah, this is about to be a really weird transition. So we want to say thank you for making ATL Day Ones your first listen today. Remember, we're free and available wherever you download your podcast. Make sure you leave us a 5-star review. We'll be doing a big preview. Tanitra will be back, and we might have a special guest. So make sure you guys come back tomorrow to check us out. And as we preview what's going down with the Atlanta Falcons versus the Green Bay Packers. And before we get out of here, if you don't do anything else with your life, make sure you share love, show love, and most importantly, stop hating and get better and spread some love.